My name is April Barrett, and I was 32 years old when my parents sold my apartment without my permission. 3 weeks before my sister Megan's wedding, I got a phone call that shattered everything I thought I knew about my family. My parents were laughing, actually laughing, as they thanked me for the wedding present. They had forged my signature, sold the apartment I'd spent 8 years saving for, and used the money to fund Megan's $100,000 dream wedding. They didn't ask. They just took. But that wasn't even the worst part. The worst part was finding out my sister had been taking credit for something I'd been doing for 4 years. Before I tell you what happened next, please take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy this story. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is there. But to understand why this moment broke something in me, I need to take you back to the beginning. In our family, Megan was the sun. I was just expected to orbit. Growing up in the Barrett household meant understanding your place early. Megan was the baby. 4 years younger, impossibly charming, and the center of every room she entered. My parents didn't play favorites. They simply had different expectations. For Megan, the world was supposed to be soft. For me, it was supposed to build character. When we were kids, both of us wanted to learn piano. I was 10, Megan was 6. My mother signed Megan up for private lessons with Mrs. Henderson down the street, $40 a week every Saturday morning. "What about me?" I asked. My mother barely looked up from the checkbook. "April, you're old enough to teach yourself. There are tutorials on YouTube." I remember standing in the doorway watching Megan skip out to her first lesson with a new music book clutched to her chest. I taught myself chopsticks on our old keyboard. Nobody noticed. That became the pattern. When I wanted to join the school choir, I was told we couldn't afford the uniform. 2 months later, Megan got a $200 dance costume for her recital. When I complained, just once, my father sat me down with that disappointed look I came to know so well. "April, don't be selfish. Your sister is more sensitive. She needs more support. You've always been the strong one." So I learned to be strong. I learned to stop asking. I learned that every time I spoke up, I became the difficult one, the jealous one, the one who couldn't just be happy for her sister. Looking back, I realized they'd been training me my whole life for what they were about to do. The pattern didn't stop when I grew up. If anything, it got worse. When I graduated from college, summa cum laude, accounting degree, first in my family to finish university, my parents weren't there. They'd forgotten to book flights. They were too busy helping Megan move into her new apartment across town, the one they'd co-signed for because her credit wasn't good enough. "We'll celebrate when you're home for Christmas," my mother said over the phone, her voice distant, distracted. Megan really needed us this weekend. I walked across that stage alone. My roommate's parents took photos of me in my cap and gown. 8 years later, I bought my own apartment. No cosigner, no help, just years of 60-hour weeks, packed lunches, and a savings account I never touched. The day I got the keys, I called my parents to share the news. My father's response: "That's nice, honey. Hey, does it have a spare room? Megan might need a place to stay for a few months while she figures things out." Not congratulations, not "we're proud of you," just "could Megan use it?" "April, you're so independent," my mother always said, and I used to think it was a compliment. "You don't need us fussing over you like Megan does." Translation: "We don't have to try with you. You'll survive anyway." And I did. I always survived. I just stopped expecting anything different. When my parents asked to keep my apartment documents safe in their lockbox, I handed them over without a second thought. They were my parents. I trusted them. That trust would cost me more than I could have imagined. 3 years before the wedding, my parents made a terrible mistake. My father had always fancied himself a businessman. When his college buddy pitched a can't-miss real estate development in Arizona, Dad invested everything: their retirement savings, the equity they'd built in the house, every dollar they had. The project collapsed 6 months later. The developers vanished. My parents were left with a mortgage they couldn't pay and a foreclosure notice taped to their front door. I found out by accident. A letter from the bank arrived at my apartment. Wrong address on file. Past due. Final warning. I called the bank that afternoon and set up automatic payments from my account. $2,100 every month. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't want them to feel ashamed. I didn't want the awkward conversations, the promises to pay me back that would never materialize. I just handled it, like I always did. What I didn't know was that Megan had discovered my secret. A few months after I started paying, she borrowed my laptop to finish a work presentation. She must have seen the email confirmation from the bank, the payment receipt with my name, the amount, everything. And instead of thanking me, instead of telling our parents the truth, Megan told them she was the one paying the mortgage. "I've been helping out," she apparently told them. "From my PR salary, it's the least I can do." My parents were moved to tears. Their baby girl, so selfless, so mature. They told everyone at church. They bragged to the neighbors. Meanwhile, I kept sending $200 every month, watching the money leave my account, never knowing someone else was taking the credit. I didn't know it then, but someone else was taking credit for every dollar I sent. Then Megan got engaged, and everything changed. Brandon Whitmore was everything my parents had ever dreamed of for their daughter. Handsome, well-spoken, and most importantly, rich. His father owned the largest law firm in the county. His mother chaired 3 charity boards. The Whitmores had a summer house in Martha's Vineyard and a winter place in Aspen. When Megan brought Brandon home for the first time, I watched my parents transform. My father stood straighter. My mother served the good china. They laughed at jokes that weren't funny and nodded along to opinions they didn't hold. "This wedding will change everything for this family," my father said to me privately, his eyes bright with something I'd never seen before. Desperation, maybe, or hope. "Megan's future is our future." They started planning immediately. Not just any wedding, a Whitmore-worthy wedding. The country club ballroom, 200 guests, a 12-piece orchestra, fresh flowers flown in from Holland, the price tag, $100,000, money they didn't have. "Megan can't afford both the mortgage and the wedding," I overheard my mother saying to my father one night. "She's already sacrificing so much for us. We need to find another way." I remember feeling confused. Megan was barely making $3,000 a month at her PR job. How was she supposedly paying a $2,100 mortgage? But I dismissed the thought. Maybe she'd gotten a raise. Maybe Brandon was helping. I had no idea my sister was living a lie, and that my parents were about to make me pay for it. My mother started looking at my apartment listing online that same week. I didn't know that either. Not yet. My apartment wasn't just a place to live. It was proof that I existed. 8 years of my life had gone into those walls. Every promotion I'd earned, every vacation I'd skipped, every no I'd said to dinners and drinks and weekend trips. It all lived in that 800-square-foot space with the bay window overlooking the park. I'd painted the bedroom myself, a soft sage green that made mornings feel gentler. I'd saved for 6 months to buy the couch, a splurge I'd almost talked myself out of. The kitchen was small, but it was mine. The quiet was mine. For the first time in my life, I had somewhere I belonged completely. If I stayed silent, if I let them take it, I wouldn't just lose the apartment. I'd lose 8 years of work. I'd lose $180,000 in equity. I'd lose the only proof that April Barrett was more than a supporting character in someone else's story. And Megan would keep taking credit for my sacrifice. My parents would keep believing she was the good daughter. I'd keep paying their mortgage while they bragged about her generosity. Something shifted in me that night. They never asked my opinion because they didn't think I'd say no. They'd spent 32 years training me to accept, to adapt, to make room. And I had. God, I had. But this wasn't about being the bigger person anymore. This was about being a person at all. Being the quiet one doesn't mean you have to be the invisible one. That night, I made a decision. For the first time in my life, I was going to fight back, and I was going to expose everything. The call came on a Tuesday afternoon. I was at my desk, reviewing quarterly reports, when my mother's name flashed on my phone. "Honey!" She was laughing. I could hear my father in the background, chuckling along. "We just wanted to thank you for the wedding present." I set down my pen. "What present?" "Your apartment, sweetheart. We sold it. Got a great price, too. The buyer paid cash. Isn't that wonderful?" The room tilted. My hands went cold. "You... what?" "We knew you'd understand." Her voice was warm, completely oblivious. "You've always been so generous. And Megan's wedding is going to be just beautiful now. The florist alone..." "I didn't agree to this." A pause. My father's voice came through, patronizing and firm. "April, don't be dramatic. It's just an apartment." "It's my apartment. We're family." My mother again, that patient tone she used when explaining something obvious to a slow child. "What's yours is ours. That's how family works. Besides, you'll find another place. You're so capable." Capable. The word they used when they meant disposable. My throat was closing. "How did you even—" "I didn't sign anything." Silence. Then my father cleared his throat. "We handled the paperwork. You'd given us the documents years ago, remember? We just facilitated things." Facilitated. They'd forged my signature. They'd committed fraud, and they were laughing about it. "The closing is next week," my mother added brightly. "We really appreciate you, honey. We always knew we could count on you." I hung up without saying goodbye. They were still laughing when the line went dead. They had no idea what they'd just done. But I was about to find out exactly how deep this went. Claire Donovan had been my best friend since our first week of college. She was also one of the sharpest real estate attorneys in the city. "They did what?" Her voice went flat when I told her. "Sold my apartment. Forged my signature. They think it's done. Give me an hour." 47 minutes later, Claire called back. "The transaction isn't finalized. They signed a purchase agreement, but the closing hasn't happened yet. The title company flagged some inconsistencies with the signature. It doesn't match your records on file." Relief flooded through me, followed immediately by rage. "So it's not legal?" "It's fraud, April. You could press charges." I sat with that for a moment. Criminal charges. Against my own parents. "There's something else I need to understand," Claire said carefully. "I've been trying to piece together your family's finances. Your mom mentioned to someone at the grocery store that Megan's been paying their mortgage for years. She was bragging about it." My blood turned to ice. "What did you say?" "She said Megan's been covering the mortgage, has been for a while now. Called her the selfless one." My hands started to shake. "That's not possible. I've been paying that mortgage for 4 years. Every statement comes from my account. Every receipt has my name." A long pause. "April, are you sure?" "I have every bank statement, every confirmation email. It's my account number, Claire. My routing number, my name." Another pause, heavier this time. "Then Megan's been lying to them. She's been taking credit for your money." The room spun. My sister hadn't just stayed silent. She'd actively claimed my sacrifice as her own, for 4 years. "I need to see everything," I said quietly. "Every record. And I need to know exactly what my sister told them." I drove to my parents' house that evening. No warning, no plan, just a need to look them in the eyes. My mother opened the door with a smile. "April, what a nice surprise. We were just talking about the seating chart." I stepped inside. My father was at the kitchen table, papers spread everywhere, wedding invoices. "Why didn't you ask me?" My voice was calm. I'd practiced calm. My mother's smile flickered. "Ask you what, honey?" "About my apartment. About selling something that belongs to me." My father waved his hand dismissively. "We've been over this, April. It's done. The wedding is in 3 weeks. Let's not make this difficult." I sat down across from him. "By the way," I said, keeping my tone conversational. How has Megan been managing to pay your mortgage all these years? On her salary. My mother's face lit up. She's been wonderful. $2,100 every month, like clockwork. Such a selfless girl. Interesting. I leaned back. And she told you this herself? Well, of course. Oh, are we talking about me? Megan appeared in the doorway, still in her work clothes. She looked at me and something flickered across her face. Recognition, maybe. Awareness. Then she smiled. That same sweet, practiced smile I'd seen my whole life. Yes, she said smoothly. I've been helping out. It's what family does. She looked right at me when she said it. She knew I knew, and she didn't care. It's my wedding, April. Megan's voice sharpened. For once, can something be about me? I stood up. My mother was saying something about gratitude, about family, about not making waves. I wasn't listening. I walked out without another word. But I wasn't done, not even close. Now, before I tell you what happened at the wedding, I want to ask you something. Have you ever had someone take credit for your hard work? Drop a yes in the comments if you know exactly how betrayed I felt in that moment. And if you're invested in this story, hit that subscribe button, because what happened next at that reception? Let's just say Megan wasn't the only one who got a surprise. But first, I had to gather my evidence. Claire spread the documents across her conference table. 4 years of bank statements, each one highlighted, annotated, organized by date. 48 payments, she said. Every single one from your account. Your name, your account number, your routing number. It's all here. I stared at the stack. $2,100 times 48 months. Over $100,000. Almost exactly what they were spending on Megan's wedding. There's no way Megan could have made these payments, Claire continued. I looked up her company. Entry-level PR coordinators there make about $3,000 a month before taxes. She'd have had to give up 70% of her income. She couldn't afford rent, let alone this. She knew the exact amount, I said quietly. She saw my email confirmation years ago. That's how she knew what to tell them. Claire nodded slowly. She found your evidence and used it to build her own lie. I picked up one of the statements. My name printed clearly across the top. April Barrett, not Megan. Me. You know what this means, right? Claire's voice was gentle but serious. When you show these at the wedding, you're not just exposing your parents, you're exposing Megan, in front of her new husband, in front of his family. I thought about Brandon Whitmore, about the Whitmore family name, built on integrity and reputation, about what they'd think of a bride who'd lied about money for 4 years. The Whitmores deserve to know who they're really getting, I said. Claire didn't argue. She just started making copies. 4 years of my money, I said, almost to myself. And she smiled in my face while taking credit for every cent. That night, I dug through every email I'd ever exchanged with my parents. It didn't take long to find what I was looking for. 2 years ago, when I'd hesitated about leaving my apartment documents with them, my mother had written, "Don't worry about the papers, honey. We're just keeping them safe. You know we'd never do anything without asking." A month later, my father, "We would never touch your property without your permission. It's just for safekeeping. Trust us." Trust us. I printed both emails. Then Claire sent me something that made my stomach drop. "I got added to your family group chat years ago," she texted. "Back when I helped your mom with her will. They forgot to remove me. I've been muted, but I can still see everything." She forwarded a screenshot. The message was from Megan, dated 3 weeks earlier, right after my parents decided to sell my apartment. "Don't worry about April's apartment. She won't make a fuss. She never does." I read it 3 times. Then a fourth. "She won't make a fuss. She never does." My own sister. She wasn't just complicit, she'd reassured them. She'd told them I'd roll over. She'd counted on my silence the way you count on the sun rising. My own sister, I said out loud, alone in my apartment. She knew exactly what she was doing. I printed the screenshot, added it to the folder. She didn't just stay silent. She told them I wouldn't fight back. She counted on my silence. And maybe once, she would have been right. But that was before I understood what I was dealing with. That was before I decided to stop being easy. You have three options, Claire said, sliding a legal pad across the table. 1. We go to the police now. Forgery is a felony. Your parents could face real charges. I thought about my father in handcuffs, my mother crying in a courtroom. What else? 2. Wait until after the wedding. Handle it quietly. But by then, Megan will be married into the Whitmore family. They'll protect her. They'll spin the narrative. You'll be the bitter older sister who tried to ruin everything out of jealousy. And 3? Claire met my eyes. Confront them at the wedding. Publicly. Before the marriage is finalized. The idea should have horrified me. Causing a scene at my sister's wedding. Humiliating my parents in front of 200 people. Everything I'd been trained to avoid. But something had shifted. If I do this after the wedding, they'll spin it, I said slowly. They'll say I'm jealous, bitter. They'll make me the villain. And Megan will be safely married, protected, set for life. The Whitmores deserve to know who they're really getting. The words felt heavy and true. Brandon deserves to know. That evening, I called Mr. Peterson, the buyer who'd put an offer on my apartment. I explained the situation, the forged signature, the fraud, the fact that I'd never consented to any sale. He was silent for a long moment. Then, I'll call my lawyer. 2 days later, he withdrew from the sale entirely. The deposit was returned. The transaction was void. My parents didn't know yet. They were still planning the wedding of the century with money that wasn't coming. The wedding was in 10 days, and I had just set something in motion that would expose everything. I'm not trying to destroy them, I told Claire, but they need to face what they did. All of them. The morning of the wedding, I woke up in my apartment. My apartment. Still mine, still standing, still the only place in the world that belonged completely to me. Sunlight filtered through the bay window, casting long shadows across the bedroom floor. Somewhere across town, Megan was probably having her hair done, surrounded by bridesmaids and champagne and the promise of a perfect day. My phone buzzed, a text from Claire. Everything is ready, good luck. I showered slowly, made coffee, took my time. On my bed lay the bridesmaid dress Megan had chosen for me, a shade of pink that washed out my complexion, deliberately unflattering. She'd picked it herself, insisting it was perfect for the wedding aesthetic. I suspected she just wanted to make sure no one looked at me. Beside the dress sat a manila folder. Inside, 48 months of bank statements, the original deed to my apartment, the canceled sale contract, printed emails from my parents promising to keep my documents safe, and a screenshot of Megan telling them I wouldn't make a fuss. I looked at myself in the mirror. The pink dress looked exactly as bad as I'd expected. But that wasn't what mattered today. I picked up the folder, slid it into my purse, checked my reflection one more time. The woman in the mirror looked calm, resolved, not angry. That surprised me, not even nervous, just ready. They expected me to smile, toast, and play my part. They had no idea I'd rewritten the script. I grabbed my keys and headed for the door. The Whitmore's Country Club was 40 minutes away. The ceremony started at 2, and I had a speech to make. The Ridgemont Country Club had been transformed into a wedding fantasy. White roses cascaded from every surface. A 12-piece orchestra played Pachelbel as guests found their seats. Crystal chandeliers caught the afternoon light and scattered it into rainbows across the marble floor. 200 guests. 200 witnesses to the Barrett family's greatest performance. I stood near the back, watching my parents work the room. My father shook hands with the confidence of a man who hadn't committed fraud 3 weeks earlier. My mother floated from group to group, her dress new, her jewelry borrowed from someone with better taste. Both our daughters are so selfless, I heard her telling Mrs. Whitmore. We're truly blessed. Mrs. Whitmore smiled politely. Mr. Whitmore Sr., a silver-haired man with the commanding presence of someone who'd built an empire on handshakes and integrity, nodded along. Megan has been supporting us financially for years, my mother continued, her voice carrying across the crowd. She's such a devoted daughter. My hand tightened around my purse strap, the folder pressed against my hip. Across the room, Megan caught my eye. She was radiant in white silk and imported lace, every inch the blushing bride. She smiled at me, that same sweet smile, practiced and perfect, and gave a little wave. No guilt, no hesitation, just the serene confidence of someone who'd never faced a consequence in her life. She expected me to wave back, to smile, to play my part. I watched my parents telling another guest that my apartment was a generous gift from our oldest, taking credit for my sacrifice. Again. The ceremony was beautiful. The vows were touching. Megan cried at all the right moments, and I waited. The reception began at 6. 200 guests settled into their seats around tables draped in white linen and adorned with centerpieces that had probably cost more than my monthly salary. I sat at the family table, the folder resting in my lap beneath the tablecloth. My parents beamed. Megan glowed. Brandon held his new wife's hand and looked at her like she was made of starlight. Then my father stood up, champagne glass in hand, and the room fell silent. "Family," he began, his voice carrying across the ballroom. "That's what today is about. Sacrifice. Coming together. Everyone doing their part." I felt my jaw tighten. "I want to take a moment to thank the people who made this day possible." He paused for effect. "First, to my daughter Megan, who has been supporting this family financially for years. Her generosity and selflessness have kept us afloat through difficult times." Megan ducked her head modestly. The crowd murmured approval. "And to April." My father found me in the crowd, his smile wide and warm. "Who gave the most generous wedding gift, her apartment, so that her sister could have the wedding of her dreams." Applause. 200 pairs of eyes turned toward me, expectant, waiting for the grateful smile, the humble wave. Megan stood up from her seat and gave a little bow, accepting applause for sacrifices she'd never made. I felt every gaze like a weight pressing down on me. "Let's raise a glass to our daughters," my father concluded. "The best children parents could ask for." Glasses rose, people drank, Megan basked, and I stood up, not to smile, not to nod, but to speak. "Dad?" My voice was steady, calm. "Would you mind if I said a few words?" My father's smile wavered for just a moment, surprise maybe, or the first flicker of concern. But 200 people were watching, and Richard Barrett had never met a spotlight he didn't love. "Of course, sweetheart." He handed me the microphone. "The floor is yours." I took it. The weight of it felt right in my hand. "Thank you, Dad." I turned to face the room, letting my gaze sweep across the sea of expectant faces. "I do have something to say about those sacrifices you mentioned." Silence. Absolute silence. Even the servers stopped moving. At the family table, Megan's smile faltered. Her eyes met mine, and I watched the color drain from her face. She knew. In that moment, she knew exactly what was coming. "Since we're sharing," I continued, "I think everyone deserves to know the whole story." My mother leaned forward, her expression shifting from pride to confusion to the first edges of panic. My father's jaw tightened. Brandon Whitmore watched me with curious eyes. His father, the silver-haired patriarch, set down his champagne glass and studied me with the focused attention of a man who'd built his career on reading people. 200 guests were watching. The Whitmore family was watching. And my sister, my sweet, selfless sister who'd been taking credit for my sacrifice for 4 years, was watching too. I opened my purse and pulled out the folder. "I have documentation proving everything I'm about to say." My voice didn't waver. "So please, let me finish." The Whitmores were watching. 200 guests were watching. and my sister's face had just gone pale. Okay, this is the moment you've been waiting for. But before I tell you what I said next, I need to know, what would you do? Would you expose your sister on her wedding day, or stay quiet? Let me know in the comments. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now's the time. Because what comes next changes everything for both sisters. Now, let me tell you what I said into that microphone. My father just thanked me for giving up my apartment. I kept my voice measured, professional. I want to clarify something. The room was absolutely still. I could hear the faint hum of the air conditioning, the distant clink of ice in someone's glass. I didn't give it. I paused. Let the words land. I didn't sell it. I didn't even know about it until 3 weeks ago. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Mrs. Chen, Mrs. Smith from my parents' church group, covered her mouth. One of the Whitmore cousins leaned forward in his seat. My parents sold my apartment without my knowledge or consent. I held up the folder. They forged my signature on the sale documents. April, what are you? My father's voice was sharp, warning. I'm not done, Dad. My mother's face had gone white. She was gripping the edge of the table like it was the only thing keeping her upright. Mr. Whitmore Sr. set down his champagne glass with a quiet click. His expression had shifted from curiosity to something harder, something colder. I have the original deed here. I pulled it from the folder, held it up so the room could see. My name, April Barrett, sole owner. I bought this apartment with 8 years of savings. I never authorized any sale. Whispers now, spreading through the crowd like ripples in water. Brandon Whitmore was staring at his new in-laws with an expression I couldn't quite read. His father's jaw was set. I have documentation proving everything I'm about to say, I repeated, so please let me finish. My mother opened her mouth to explain, to deflect, to somehow spin this, but no words came out. I wasn't done, not even close. The good news, for me, is that the sale was never legal. I pulled another document from the folder. A sale without the owner's genuine signature is void. That's basic property law. My father's face had gone from angry to ashen. I contacted the buyer, Mr. Peterson, last week. I explained the situation. He withdrew from the sale immediately. I held up the termination letter. The deposit has already been returned to him. The transaction is canceled. My mother's voice cracked. That's not possible. The money you were counting on? I met her eyes. It's not coming. Megan grabbed Brandon's arm. Wait, what does this mean for... It means the apartment is still mine. I turned to look directly at my sister. It was always mine, and you knew that. Brandon pulled his arm away, just slightly, just enough to notice. The canceled sale contract. I held up another document. The original deed, both with my name, both proving that what my parents did was illegal. Mr. Whitmore Sr. stood up. The movement was controlled, deliberate, the kind of gesture that commanded immediate attention. He walked toward me, hand extended. May I see those documents? I handed him the folder without hesitation. His eyes scanned the pages, the deed, the contract, the signatures. His expression didn't change, but something shifted in the set of his shoulders. April, please. My mother's voice was barely a whisper. Not here, not now. This is exactly where it needs to happen, I said. This is exactly when. Because there was more, and everyone in that room was about to find out exactly how deep the lies went. But that's not all. I turned back to face the room. There's something else you should know. The silence was absolute. 200 people, barely breathing. My father thanked Megan for supporting the family financially, for paying their mortgage for years. I looked directly at my sister. Isn't that right, Megan? Megan's face was frozen, pure terror in her eyes. Here's the truth. I reached for the stack of bank statements Mr. Whitmore Sr. was still holding. For the past 4 years, I've been paying our parents' mortgage every month $2,100. My father staggered. What? Every payment. I held up the statements. From my account, with my name, for 4 years. The documents passed from hand to hand. April Barrett printed across the top of every page, account numbers, routing numbers, 48 consecutive payments. I turned to face my sister directly. You saw my email confirmation years ago, Megan. You knew it was me, and you told them it was you. Megan's voice cracked. I can explain. You took credit for $100,000 of my sacrifice. My voice was steady, calm, final. Every time Mom praised you, every time Dad thanked you, every time you smiled and said, "You're welcome," that was my money, my sacrifice, and you stole it. Brandon Whitmore stood up slowly. He was staring at his new wife like he'd never seen her before. Megan. His voice was quiet, but it carried. You lied? About all of it? She reached for him. Brandon, please. He stepped back. Mr. Whitmore Sr. looked up from the documents. His eyes found my parents, then Megan, then settled on me. I didn't tell anyone because I didn't want you to feel ashamed, I said. But Megan? She took credit for my sacrifice, for 4 years. I want to be clear. I lowered my voice slightly. I'm not doing this to hurt anyone. A few people shifted in their seats. Someone coughed. I'm doing this because the truth matters, and I'm tired of being the one who stays silent. I set down the microphone for a moment, gathering myself. The room was holding its breath. As of today, I'm no longer paying your mortgage. My father's face crumpled. April, you can't. We'll lose the house. You tried to take my house. I picked the microphone back up. And Megan took credit for keeping yours. I looked at my sister. She was crying now, mascara streaking down her cheeks, but I felt nothing. Not anger, not satisfaction, just a vast, empty clarity. Maybe now you can actually start paying it, Megan, since everyone already thinks you do. Then I turned to my parents. And despite everything, what I felt in that moment wasn't rage. It was sadness. I loved you enough to save your home in secret. 4 years, over $100,000. I never asked for thanks. I never even told you. My voice cracked, just slightly. Neither of you loved me enough to ask before taking mine. I set down the microphone. The click of it against the table echoed through the silent ballroom. I picked up my purse, lighter now, without the folder, and turned to leave. From across the room, I heard Claire's voice, quiet but clear. That's my girl. Someone else might have stayed to watch the fallout, to see the tears and accusations and desperate explanations. But I was done. I'd said what I came to say. Now it was time to go. The silence lasted exactly 4 seconds after I set down the microphone. Then the room erupted. Whispers became murmurs, became open conversations. Guests leaned across tables, trading shocked glances. Someone's phone was already out, recording. The Whitmore cousins were huddled together, expressions ranging from horrified to grimly satisfied. Is it true? Brandon's voice cut through the noise. He was standing now, facing Megan. Did you lie to me too? I didn't. Megan's voice broke. It's not. I was going to tell you. 4 years. Brandon's voice was flat. You lied about money for 4 years. To your own parents. To me. Mr. Whitmore Sr. approached my father. The two men were roughly the same age, but the difference in their bearing was stark. My father looked shrunken, diminished. Mr. Whitmore looked like a man about to deliver a verdict. You told us your family was honest, Richard. His voice was quiet but carried. You told us Megan was trustworthy. It's a misunderstanding, my father started. There's nothing to misunderstand. Mrs. Whitmore had risen too, her face cold. She lied about money for 4 years. That's not a misunderstanding, that's a pattern. Megan pushed through the crowd and grabbed my arm. April, wait, you ruined my wedding. I stopped, looked at her. No, Megan. My voice was calm. You ruined it yourself, the day you decided to lie. I watched her face crumble, not with remorse, but with the shocked disbelief of someone who'd never been told no in her life. Behind us, guests were starting to gather their things. Brandon was walking toward the exit, not following Megan, going the other direction entirely. I turned and kept walking. Megan caught up to me in the hallway, heels clicking frantically on the marble floor. "How could you do this to me?" She was crying, really crying now, her makeup ruined, her voice raw. "On my wedding day?" I stopped, turned to face her. "You knew what you were doing every single day for 4 years." "I was trying to help. Every time Mom praised you." I cut her off, voice steady. "Every time Dad thanked you. You smiled and said, 'You're welcome.'" I was going to tell them. "That wasn't a mistake, Megan. That was a choice. Over and over. Every month for 4 years, you had a chance to tell the truth. You didn't." My mother appeared behind Megan, breathless. "April, please. We can talk about this. We should have talked 4 years ago." I met her eyes. "Or 3 weeks ago, when you decided to sell my home without asking. Now it's too late." My mother's face crumpled. For a moment, just a moment, I felt something stir. Guilt, maybe, or the old habit of making things easier for everyone else. Then I remembered the phone call, the laughter, the assumption that I would simply accept. "Goodbye, Mom." I walked through the country club's grand entrance, past the valets and the confused guests filtering out behind me. The evening air was cool against my skin. Claire was waiting by her car. "How do you feel?" she asked quietly. I thought about it, really thought. Like I just told the truth for the first time in my life. I took a deep breath of the autumn air. And it didn't kill me. She opened the passenger door for me. "Let's get out of here." We ended up at a cafe 3 miles from the country club, far enough that we wouldn't run into any straggling wedding guests, close enough that my hands had stopped shaking by the time we arrived. Claire ordered us both coffee. Black, no sugar, the kind of coffee you drink when you need to stay sharp. "You could press charges," she said, stirring her cup. "Forgery is a felony in this state. Your parents could face real consequences." I wrapped my hands around my mug, feeling its warmth. "I know. The evidence is solid. The bank statements, the forged signature, the emails where they promised to keep your documents safe. Any prosecutor would love this case." I watched the steam rise from my coffee. Outside, the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. "No." The word came out more certain than I expected. "I don't want them in prison. I just wanted them to face what they did." Claire nodded slowly. "And Megan?" "That's between her and Brandon now." I took a sip. The coffee was bitter, but I didn't mind. "And between her and her conscience, if she has one." My phone buzzed, then buzzed again. And again. I pulled it out. 23 missed calls from Mom, 15 from Dad, 8 from Megan. A dozen text messages, each more frantic than the last. I turned the phone to silent and set it face down on the table. "I'm done being the one who always picks up when they call," I said. Claire raised her coffee cup. "To new beginnings." I clinked my mug against hers. "To new beginnings." 3 days after the wedding, the fallout was still spreading. I heard most of it secondhand, from Claire, from old college friends, from the cousin who'd always secretly been on my side. The Barrett family's carefully constructed image was crumbling faster than anyone could have predicted. Brandon had moved out of Megan's apartment the night of the wedding. He'd gone straight to his parents' house and hadn't left since. Word was the Whitmore's lawyers were already drawing up annulment papers. "Marriage based on misrepresentation," my cousin texted. "That's the legal term they're using." Megan's PR company had put her on indefinite leave. Image concerns, apparently. A PR professional who'd lied about money for 4 years wasn't exactly a good look for a firm that specialized in reputation management. The church community was buzzing. Mrs. Smith, the one who'd witnessed my father's toast, had apparently told half the congregation before the weekend was over. My parents hadn't shown their faces at Sunday service. My phone kept lighting up with messages, some from people I barely knew. I always knew something was off. Your mom used to brag about Megan all the time. Never mentioned you. I saw a video from the wedding on Facebook. You're iconic. A text from my grandmother came through late that evening. I'm proud of you, April. I always suspected Megan was hiding something. Your grandfather would have been proud too. I sat in my apartment, still mine, still standing, and watched the city lights flicker on outside my window. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel vengeful. I just felt quiet. For the first time in a long time, the quiet felt like peace. 2 weeks later, my father called. I almost didn't answer. But something, curiosity maybe, or the last vestiges of the daughter I used to be, made me pick up. April. His voice sounded different, older, smaller. We got a letter from the bank. I said nothing. They're giving us 90 days. After that, he trailed off. Have you asked Megan? I kept my voice neutral. She's been telling you she pays it for years. Maybe she can help now. A long silence. When he spoke again, his voice cracked. She can't. She never could. We know that now. I know, Dad. I've always known. Another pause, heavier this time. Why didn't you tell us it was you? The question hung in the air. I'd asked myself the same thing those first few months. Why hadn't I demanded credit? Why had I let them believe their golden child was saving them? Would it have mattered? I asked finally. Would you have treated me any differently? Or would Megan still have been your favorite? He had no answer. We both knew the truth. I'm not paying any more, Dad. I can't save you from this. April, please. You need to figure this out as a family. I took a breath. But I'm not part of that family anymore. Not the way I was before. I hung up before he could respond. The call log showed 17 missed calls from my mother, 4 more from Megan. I didn't return any of them. For 32 years, I'd been the one who answered, the one who showed up, the one who fixed things. Someone else's turn now. 2 months later, the house sold. My cousin sent me the listing when it went up, $285,000, price to move. It sold in 11 days, barely enough to cover the outstanding mortgage and the bank fees. My parents walked away with almost nothing. They moved into a 2-bedroom apartment across town. The same complex where Megan was now living, I heard later. The annulment had been finalized. Brandon Whitmore was already dating someone else, a lawyer from his father's firm, according to the church gossip network. For the first time in her life, Megan was actually contributing. No more pretending, no more taking credit for someone else's sacrifice. Just a $3,000 monthly salary and real bills to pay. I didn't reach out. I didn't gloat. I just lived my life. Then, one evening, a letter arrived. No return address, but I recognized my mother's handwriting. I almost threw it away, but something made me open it. Dear April, I'm sorry. For everything. For not seeing you. For always putting Megan first. For believing her without question when we should have known better. You deserved a mother who noticed. You deserved parents who celebrated you the way we celebrated your sister. We failed you, and we don't have any excuse. I don't expect you to forgive us, but I wanted you to know. I see it now. I see what we did. I see what you gave us all those years, and how we never once said thank you. Your father is too proud to write this, but I'm not. You deserved better. Mom. I read it twice, then set it on my kitchen counter. It's a start, I said to no one. But words are cheap. Actions take time. 6 months after the wedding, I sat in my apartment watching the sunset through my bay window. The same apartment. Still mine. But somehow, everything about it felt different now. I'd repainted the bedroom a deeper shade of green, bought new curtains, replaced the old couch with something I'd actually picked out myself, not just settled for. The space felt lighter somehow, like it could finally breathe. Claire came over for dinner every Thursday now. We'd cook something ambitious, drink wine, and talk about everything except my family. "You look different," she said one evening, studying me across the table. "Lighter." "I stopped carrying people who would never carry me." She raised her glass. I raised mine. Work was better too. The promotion I'd been chasing for 2 years finally came through. The extra $800 a month, money that used to disappear into my parents' mortgage, stayed in my account now. I'd started a travel fund, booked a trip to Portugal for the spring. 32 years of saving everything for everyone else. 32 years of being the backup plan, the safety net, the reliable one who never asked for anything. Now finally, I was learning to spend something on myself. My phone buzzed. A text from a number I hadn't blocked. "Megan, I'm sorry for everything. Can we talk?" I stared at it for a long moment. A year ago, 6 months ago even, I would have answered immediately, would have smoothed things over, made peace. But I wasn't that person anymore. I set the phone down, took another sip of wine, watched the last rays of sunlight fade from the sky. Maybe someday, but not today. You might be wondering if I'll ever forgive them. Honestly, I don't know yet. What I do know is that forgiveness isn't the same as letting people walk over you. It's not about pretending something didn't happen. It's not about making yourself small again so everyone else can feel comfortable. Being the quiet one, the peacekeeper, the one who always gives, that's not a virtue if it comes at the cost of your self-respect. I learned that the hard way, over 32 years of being taken for granted. I used to think my silence made me the bigger person. Turns out, it just made me invisible. I spent 32 years being easy. Easy to ignore, easy to take from, easy to overlook, easy to lie to. I'm done being easy. My phone buzzed again. Megan's text still glowing on the screen. "I'm sorry for everything. Can we talk?" I picked it up, read the message one more time. Then I typed back. "Actions, not words. Show me you've changed, then we'll talk." I hit send. Maybe she would. Maybe she wouldn't. Maybe my parents would find their way back to me someday, with more than just letters and apologies. Maybe they wouldn't. But that wasn't really the point anymore. The point was that I'd finally stopped waiting for them to see me. I'd stopped needing their approval to know my own worth. Family isn't about blood, it's about respect. And respect goes both ways, or it goes nowhere. I looked around my apartment, still mine, always mine, and smiled. For the first time in my life, I didn't need anyone's permission to be enough. I already was. And that's my story. If you've ever been the quiet one who someone took credit for, the one who gave and gave while others stole the spotlight, I see you. Drop a comment. What's your boundary now? What line won't you let anyone cross? If this story hit home, subscribe and check out another story in the description. Thank you for being here with me.